Today we're going to be looking at square numbers. Square numbers are what you get when you multiply a number by itself. Okay, so for example, 2 multiplied by 2 itself is going to give us 4. Okay, fairly straightforward. So 4's our square number here, not the 2, it's the 4, it's the result. What if we did 3 multiplied by 3? We get 9. So again, 9 is the square number. A slightly bigger example, let's try 7 multiplied by 7. That gives us 49. So 49 is the square number. It's just what you get, it's the result of multiplying a number by itself. But how would we write that? For example, if we saw it in a question, how might it be written? Well, we write it like this. We write, if we take the example from up here, 2 multiplied by 2, we would do 2, and then we would write a little 2 in the top right hand corner of the number there. And that again gives us 4. It's the exact same as the one that we did up here, apart from we write it in a different way. So 2 squared. Let's try this one over here, the 3 multiplied by 3. We would write the 3, and then we write little 2 up there, which means 3 squared. 3 is being multiplied by itself. So 3 2 times. Okay, 3 times 3. So we write a little 2. And as we said before, that would give us 9. So that's what square numbers are. That's how we work them out. Let's put that into practice now with a few example questions. Okay, let's do these first 2 questions then. So the first one, 4 squared. So that is simply 4 multiplied by 4, which is 16. So we can go ahead and pop 16 into the box. The next one is 6 squared plus 10. So it's a bit of a two-part of this. We've firstly got to do 6 squared, which is 6 multiplied by 6. And that gives us 36. And then we've got to add on 10. So hopefully you can do that in your head. But that should give us 46. Okay, so we'll go ahead and pop that into the box. That is our final answer. So you should get 16 for the first one and 46 for the second one. Let's have a look at these 2 questions next then. So the first one says, find 2 square numbers that total 45. So we want 2 square numbers added together, which give us this 45 here. Now I think the best way to do this is to bring up a list of some square numbers. So we're going to have square numbers up to 100, and then we can look at them and figure out which 2 we need to add together to get us our answer of 45. So if I bring this up here, we can see we've got 1 squared, 2 squared, etc. all the way down to 10 squared, which is 100. And this will help us to find our answer to this first question here. So let's have a look. We need 2 things which add to make 45. So if you notice, 36 and 9 give us our 45, and you can test that yourself, but 36 and 9 will give you your answer of 45. Now this actually helps for our second question as well up here, because we have got the fact that 36 and 64 are both square numbers. We can see that here, 64 here, that's 8 squared, and 36, that is 6 squared. They have a sum of 100, so sum just means added together. 64 and 36, if you add those you get 100. We need to find 2 square numbers that have a sum of 130. Okay, again, we're going to look up here at our list of square numbers, and you can always write these out. You won't be given these, but you can write these out, so it's best to remember them. To find 2 that have a sum of 130, we just need to add 2 of them together. So let's have a little look. 100, you might think, is the obvious choice, but nothing, that's 30 is not a square number, so 130 would not work. So we need 2 other numbers. Let's have a little look. What about 81? So let's pick 81 and perhaps 49, because I can see here that our number that we need, it ends in a 0, okay, so it's a multiple of 10, and 9 and 1, that gives us 10 as well, so that will end in a 0. So using your number bond knowledge and your mental math skills, you can sort of figure out two numbers that it might be, and you can test them. Obviously, you're going to need quite a big number. It won't be anything like 1 and 4 or 1 and 9, because that's obviously not going to be big enough. So use common sense and also obviously your mental math skills, and then try a couple of different combinations. So what about 81 and 49? Well, 81, 49, and you can use obviously column method if you want to for this, or just do it in your head. But 9 and 1 gives us 10, and I'll carry the 1 just up there. 8 and 4 gives us 12, plus the 1 that we carried, so cross that out, and that gives us 130. So that's correct. So 81 and 49. So 9 squared and 7 squared, they are going to be our answers there. Okay, hopefully they were alright. Let's do a couple more. Alright, so let's go through the first one. It says, here's a sorting diagram for numbers. We need to write a number less than 100 in each space. So the first thing we need is an even number, which is also a square number. So I've put them up here on the right, so you can have a little look. We need an even number, which is also a square number. So I'm going to choose 64, which is just there, 8 squared. Okay, 64, that's even because of the 4. Now we need an odd number, so a number which is not even, which is also a square number. So again, I'm going to have a look over here, and I'm going to choose 25. Okay, that's not even. Now beneath that, we firstly need an even number, which is not a square number. Okay, so anything which is even, less than 100, and which is not shown here on the right hand side. So there's quite a few that you can have. I'm going to choose 46. Okay, and then we also need a number which is not even, which is also not a square number. So again, can't be here on the right hand side. I'm going to choose 33. Okay, that's odd because of the 3. Okay, hope that was alright. There's quite a few numbers that you could have had there, but as long as they obey these here, the even, not even, square and not square, then you should be fine. Okay, let's have a look at the second one. In the second question, it says, Lara chooses a square number. She rounds it to the nearest 100, and her answer is 200. We need to write all the possible square numbers which Lara could have chosen. Now, this is a bit tricky because we haven't looked at numbers bigger than 10 squared, so 100. But I've put them over here on the right hand side for you to have a look at. So we've got everything up to 16 squared, which is 256. Now with this question, the important thing is, first of all, rounding to the nearest 100. Now at a more basic level, if you remember, if we round to the nearest 10, we just need to look at the units. So for example, numbers between 1 and 4, when we're rounded to the nearest 10, are going to round down. Okay, so they round down. And numbers 5 to 9, they round up. Okay, so 34, that would round down to 30 because it's got a 4. However, if you took 35, round up, of course, to 40 because it's a 5. Okay, now round to 100, it's same principle, but we just need to look at the tens column. So anything in the tens column, which is 1 to 4, including 4, we round down, and anything 5 to 9, including 5 and 9, we round up. So, for example, with these numbers here, 1, 2, 1, that would round down, because the 2 is between 1 and 4, so we round to 100. 144 also rounds to 100. 169 rounds up to 200, because of the 6. 196 also rounds to 200 because of the 9. 225 rounds down to 200 because of the 2 in the tens place. And 256, that will round up to 300 because of the 5 in the tens place. Remember, 5 to 9, they round up. So essentially we're looking at any numbers between 150 and 249. Any numbers between this range, if we're rounding to the nearest 100, we'll round to 200. And we've already found our answers here. 13 squared, 14 squared, and 15 squared. Those three round to 200. So we can go ahead and pop these on the answer line. 169, 196, and 225. Okay, let's go through one final question. Pause it, have a go, and then come back when you're ready. Alright, hopefully this one was alright. The question says, here are some number cards. We've got 9 through to 18. It says Joe picks 2 even numbers and Dev picks 2 odd numbers. Joe gives one of his cards to Dev and Dev gives one of his cards to Joe. Joe says, now my cards are both square numbers, and Dev says, now my cards are both multiples of 5. Okay, so those are the key bits. Joe has cards that are both square numbers and Dev has cards that are both multiples of 5. We need to write the numbers in which they each started with. Alright, now the easiest way to do this is to consider the cards that they end up with. So square numbers, there's only 2 square numbers here. We've got 9 and 16, right? So Joe ends up with 9 and 16. 9 is 3 squared and 16 is 4 squared. Dev has multiples of 5. The only 2 multiples of 5 here are 10 and 15. So he ends up with 10 and 15. It says originally Joe picked 2 even numbers and Dev picked 2 odd numbers, and they gave one of the cards to each other. So if Joe picked 2 even numbers, he must have picked 16. Okay, so he must have picked 16 to start with, because that's the only even one that he has there. And he must have given 10 to Dev, because that's the other even one. Okay, so he picked both the even ones. And Dev, that means he must have picked 9 and 15 to start with, because he picked both of the odd ones, and they've exchanged one of their cards each with each other. So there's your answers. Joe started with 16 and 10, and Dev started with 9 and 15. Okay, hopefully that was alright.